Welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast, the podcast that gives you immediate actions you can take to start seeing life-shifting results now. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast. This is Mark Cardone.
And Theron Feidt.
I'm so excited to podcast today. It's been a couple weeks since we've recorded because we obviously, we do a couple episodes at a time and, we had a week off and we've had breaks. So I'm so excited for this podcast and we're talking about some important stuff today. So I'm glad people are here listening.
Yeah, we have these podcasts really to help all of us. One thing we've talked about this before is as we're developing these podcasts, sometimes it's from something we heard. Somebody said something, ask us a question about how do you do certain things, or even things that we've happened in our life that we want to share, and then we come up with what are the steps? What are the solutions for this? Because that's one of the things that we do believe that there is a solution out there. Probably somebody's already thought of it, and we just share it with you.
Well, I think one of the cool things about this specific topic that we're talking about today is what happens in life, right? And for a lot of our listeners, I'm sure they resonate with this. Is the answer, right? Like internally, the answer because there's only there's a finite number of answers,
right,
to all of the things, right? So the answer, but sometimes in our head we go, I know what I need to do, but it's probably not going to work, right? Because we get on that, I know better, right? I know what will work, and I know that thing that's tried and true and always works is not going to work in this case, right? And literally, like, that's what I went through with this, and that's kind of what brought up this podcast. I was having a terrible, awful, no good, very bad day last week. And I did everything I could to get myself and kept going all day. And I got to the dojo and all I could think was there is no shoe rack big enough to put the problems from today in to leave there. Right. And this reverts back to our shoe rack principle. And we did a podcast on this a long time ago. And that's what we're talking about today. Mm-hmm. We're talking about, being able to go from having a tough time, having a tough day or whatever, and moving beyond that, right? And getting better and fixing it.
Right. I something that I hear people say that kind of makes me sad a little bit is, man, I'm just having a bad day. And they decide sometimes even in the morning, you've heard the expression, I woke up on the wrong side of the bed, that expression. And then what happens is they are determined to have a bad day all the way to the end. And then sometimes I've even heard people say, this is a horrible week. Was a whole week horrible? I mean, certain times you have a death of somebody closest to you, obviously, that's going to affect you for a long time. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the day-to-day things that happen. Somebody cuts you off in traffic. Your kid is being a jerk, at home.
Yeah.
Whatever. Things that happen in life. Really, I urge you not to have it ruin your whole day.
Yeah.
Yesterday in particular, we had a rough day at the dojo.
Yeah.
I came in the morning and there were some things that weren't very nice that happened. But I didn't let it ruin my day. You just get things done. And was it the best day I've ever had? Absolutely not. But it certainly wasn't something that I made sure that my day wasn't ruined because of it.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because, exactly what you said. One of the key pieces of this is how our subconscious works to prove us right a lot of times,
It does.
And when we say, man, I'm just having a bad day, your subconscious will really work hard to key out all of those things and to start to look for all of those things that are going sideways. Right.
Yes.
And it's funny too, because I talk to people about this often. Right. And I say, look, when you're having a bad day, start with the basics, right? Sun is warm, grass is green. And they say things to me like, well, yeah, but that stuff doesn't matter. That stuff doesn't fix the bad stuff. And I say, well, try living without those things, right? Like these things are important and they're good, but look for the good and you'll get more of the good, right?
Yeah. And some people just feed off of the negative,
I love it.
The one thing is negativity does give you energy. Think about anytime you're super angry at something, think of the energy that you have and the energy that you expend on that anger. So I think, sometimes you can use that anger and make sure you're directing it properly. I
Mhm.
think there's something to be said about that. And neither of us are saying that you should always be happy and you should not
No.
be upset about certain things, because you should, because that's about standards. If I come in the dojo and it's not clean the way it should be cleaned, or I'm looking at the floor and the students and the instructors aren't the way, I'm going to be a little upset. Now, I'm not going to go off the handle and make a scene, but I am going to feel it in my gut and I'm going to make changes happen. Right.
No.
So it's fine to have those feelings. What's not fine is that it affects your whole day, and that, like you kick your dog, that idea that you're going to
Yeah.
take it out on someone or something that has nothing to do with what the problem is, and that's what we want to avoid.
Yeah. And as we're trying to do that, so I mean, what we're doing, the transformation we're making here, we're taking, the problems from the day and we're trying to eliminate them as quickly as you can. And you can do this at
Right.
any point during the day, right? These are 3 steps
Yep.
you can do anytime. You can do them when you wake up, you can do them, after something happens, which is great about this because, at the dojo, we do it at a very specific time when we get to the
Right.
dojo, but you can do
Yep.
this anytime, right?
Right.
So let's talk about how we put down the weight, right? How
Okay.
we move on. So number one, we talked about leaving the environment,
Right.
right?
Yep.
Which is all like always a positive, because when you're in a place where you just feel kind of that ick and things are happening, it's great to just switch it up and move
Hmm.
to somewhere else, because just changing what you're looking at can oftentimes change the way you see things.
Yeah, for sure. And on let's do a little positive note. Let's say you're writing. I do a lot of writing. You do a lot of
Yep.
writing. I'll get up and I'll get out of the room, walk around. I might go outside for a little bit, for a few minutes, and then come back to it. That's kind of the same idea: is changing your environment, get out of the where things either are triggering you
Yeah.
or where you have whatever. And like you said, that the shoe rack principle as you're coming in the dojo is, put those problems in your shoes. That's the same idea of changing your environment.
Yeah.
So getting up and doing something. Oftentimes I'll get up and I'll do some push-ups, or I'll do some sit-ups, or I'll do some,
Yeah.
something active for 5 minutes and then get back to it. That's a change in environment.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to leave the whole thing. It's more of, if you're sitting in one room, go to a different room. You don't have to
Yeah.
leave the house necessarily.
Right. Right. But you can.
But you can.
But totally don't have to. And that's,
Yep.
when I talk to people who are chronic snooze button pushers,
Yeah.
I think one of the best things you can do is
Button pushers.
move the snooze away from you, right, into a
Yep.
different location, because when you change your environment and you move from that place of comfort, right,
Right.
where you're sleeping and you got your phone next to your head and you just keep hitting the snooze button because it feels good,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
If you change and you move into the kitchen, you'll find, oh my God, I'm not tired anymore. Like
Yeah.
now I'm in a different place. I'm
Yeah.
not as, pulled in. So changing
Right.
environment, big step for this
Yep.
one.
Yep. The second one is do something unrelated.
Yeah.
Do an unrelated action. So as you change your environment, so that's step one. Is then don't just get yourself out of the different environment, but then start doing something. And that's something. And I mentioned you could do push-ups. You could jog in place. You could jump rope. You could just do something unrelated to what you were already doing.
Yeah. It's amazing how much just taking how easy it is for our brain to switch, to a different thing. A
Yeah.
long time ago, I remember hearing, the brain can't multitask, it can only switch.
Right.
So what it does, like you can multitask and do many things at once, but your brain can only do one thing at a time,
Right.
right? So, the same way we can't feel fear and gratitude at the same time,
Right.
we can't have a problem and focus on walking our dog at the same
Right.
time, right? So it's really it's great to do something completely unrelated. And I think this goes for two things. It goes for number one, if you're just having that rough time and you need to get
Yep.
your head right, but also like if you're frustrated doing something, like you said, we write a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm having trouble coming up with ideas or I'm having trouble thinking of something, sometimes I'll just stop thinking about it and go do
Right.
something else, right? And then it's amazing how many ideas you have pop up on your walk, in the shower, in the wherever,
Yeah.
when you don't want them,
Yep.
right? So definitely
Yeah.
that unrelated action is huge.
Well, I think when you are doing something like driving, like taking a shower, mowing the lawn, things like that, that your body is doing something physical, and you're doing something habitual too, that you know how to do, especially if you've driven for a while.
Yeah.
It just kind of natural. I'm sure we've all experienced every once in a while. We're like, how did we get here? I don't remember driving, but you drove there safe. You just were in other thoughts. That's kind of what we're talking about, that unrelated action, and that can get you out of, the weight that is on you. But also, it's good for creativity as well. So this can be used in the positive side of trying to be creative. I mean, a lot of my ideas could be when I'm detailing my car, or I'm mowing the lawn, or doing something like that. Is oftentimes I'll pull out my phone and take a note on something that I thought about. Oh, that would be good for the meeting. That would be good for a staff training. Oh, we should do this for marketing, and I'm sure you feel you've experienced the same thing. So this podcast can be used for, oh man, I'm having a bad day, or it can be used for creativity as well.
Yeah. I think it works on both sides, and, so aside from the unrelated actions, the next step is just get back to it. Right. Yep. Because I'm a firm believer that you can't solve a problem by ignoring it.
No.
Right. So if there's real problems from the day, you're going to be done with all this and you're going to go back, and the problems are still going to be there. Yep. But what happens is you're going to find they're less oppressive. Maybe you have some creative and fresh new ideas on how to approach them.
Yep.
Right. But it's just, I always think problems are like anything. Like if I spend too much time with the same family member, I get frustrated and irritated, right? And problems are much the same way, right? Like if you spend too much time looking at it, it's always going to look big and in your face, right? So doing these steps eases that burden.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that it's easy to procrastinate, and I think most all of us do it to a certain extent, right? But the goal is not to procrastinate to the point where the problem is getting bigger.
Right.
Because like you said, your problems are still going to be there. One of the things that we talk about a lot at the dojo, whether it's the shoe rack principle or just in general, is when you work out and you get that rush from the workout, but also you're around positive people that are lifting you up at the dojo. When you go back to your problem, whatever it is, it looks better. It looks more manageable because you're in a better mood.
Yeah.
How many of us make great decisions when we're in a bad mood? The answer is zero. None of us do, right? So if you're making a decision out of anger, out of frustration, out of any of those negative emotions, that decision is probably not going to be a good one. I mean, think back in your life, anytime you've said something that you shouldn't have said, now you regret it. Well, you can't take what you said back. So it's important that you get yourself into the right frame of mind. And these are the steps to do it. And then you go back and then you work on the problems and fix it in a much better mood.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's funny. You mentioned earlier, like, somebody cuts you off in traffic and things like that. Yeah. And a lot of times those things can mount. Those things disappear, right? Yeah. Like those little annoyances throughout the day, you forget about them. They disappear because you put your head in a different spot. And then you have more focus to get direct into the things that you need to work on.
Yeah, for sure.
I just think this is great. This, like I said, proof was in the pudding for me last week. I needed this one last week and I did it and it was great.
Yeah.
So I urge everybody to give this a try when you start to feel frustrated.
Excellent. All right. So let's review. So the first step one is when you're feeling that there's just a weight of problems or whatever coming on, is you want to change your environment. It could be a different room, could be a totally different environment, could be going for a drive, but just change what you're doing. Get out of that space.
Yeah. Number 2, do unrelated actions, right? Change some things up, go do something that's not related to the problems you have, just to get them out of sight for a little while, whether it's working out, whether it's coffee with a friend or whatever, but do something completely unrelated.
Right. And then step 3 is get back to it. So don't procrastinate and let your problems get bigger, but get back to it. And then what you'll notice is when you get back to it, your attitude, your perspective, everything is going to be much, much better.
Absolutely. And that wraps up this episode of the Achieve Results Now podcast. If you found it helpful, please share it with somebody. Share it on social, tag us. We would love that. And we will see you on the next episode.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Hop over to our website at www.achieveresultsnow.com to get your free copy of our book, Ignite Results, 4 specific daily actions to help you achieve results now. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Achieve Results Now. Thanks for listening, commenting, and subscribing. Now get out there and achieve results now.